amazing colleague of mine who I've had the privilege of knowing for, I think, almost 2 years, which is very exciting. And he is just an extraordinary person. Please welcome to our lovely podcast, the wonderful and incredible Richard Sharratt. And I'm so happy that you were here with us, Richie. How have you been?
Well, first of all, thank you. I think this has been a long time coming. I've been
It really
dying to get on
has.
this.
Yes, it
I've been
really has
dying to
been a
get on.
while.
But the schedules, it always seems to be being an entrepreneur, your schedule is always full. And I'm not at the point where I'm comfortable enough having a VA or a PA. So I'm still in that zone where I'm doing it as much as possible, but also releasing some of the load, the pressure, the stress to other people
Definitely.
to help me out.
I
But
would
yeah,
say always full and never consistent too.
oh gosh,
It's never
consistency.
consistent.
Definitely we'll get into these conversations. But yeah, consistency is probably the hardest thing to achieve when
I
you
would
are
definitely.
a business person.
Totally, totally. So I know we have tons of questions for you. Before we jump into those, do you want to share a little bit about yourself with our listeners?
Yes. So as you can tell from the accent, I'm from England originally, which is part of the reason why early on in my life I came from quite a heavy set military family. I'm a fourth generation that we're aware of when it comes to the military, certainly the army. My great granddad was in World War One. He was what I would class as a war hero. Did some crazy things and then didn't get any medals for it. And so from that, I was always meant to be in the military. And whether I knew it or not, that was the path for me. So in 2003, I joined the army, the British Army, and over a long 15-year experience is what I call it. Definitely, I wouldn't say a career because I jumped around quite a lot. I traveled the world. I saw the most amazing thing that the world has to offer. And sadly, I saw the polar opposite of what can happen during wartime.
Mm,
So that kind of really was a lot of my early life. And being
yeah.
43 now, it feels like a lifetime ago that I was in the military. I've been out 8 years now, but yeah, I came from a typical family, and I say typical because in the UK, more often than not, in the 90s and early 2000s, parents were splitting up, a lot of divorce going on, the rates went through the roof. And we were definitely one of those families that were hit quite hard by a divorce. Ended up moving. My sister really, my mum was out working from 6 till 6. She was working 6 or 7 cleaning jobs at the time. So we didn't really have her around except for the weekends. So my sister really took on the role of being, our mum, because I've got a brother and a sister, older sister, younger brother. And it was tough times. It was really tough times. And I'm very open. I was saying just before we started recording that I'm an oversharer. So please rein me in if I do start. But we came from nothing. We were very lucky at Christmas. Santa did come to us, thankfully. But I know that my mum worked hard through the years,
Hmm.
through that entire year for that moment.
Yeah.
And, we had Adidas 4 Stripe. Yes, that is a thing. And yes, we were teased for it. And yes, we had hand-me-downs. And yes, we came from a very underprivileged part of the UK. And we were definitely below that line, which the poverty line is what we call it. But we were definitely way below that when it came to the food we ate and the
Mm,
experiences we had. So when something did happen, we felt very lucky and quite privileged at that time.
yeah.
But kind of moving through life, it was always going to be a way. And I say this very openly that where I'm from, I come from Middlesbrough, and in I was born in Kent in London, just south of London. My dad was in the army, so we travelled the entire world. It was fantastic. And his last posting was in Hong Kong. He was doing jungle warfare in Hong Kong and working for the HQ over there. Moved back to the UK, settled in Middlesbrough, and that's where I spent most of my young and then early adult life. And at one point a few years ago, it was voted as the #1 place in the UK not to live because it was just so horrendous, from the housing to the lack of money to just the lack of jobs. It was, quite a place to grow up. And when I turned 18, 19, I had the option, and it was a serious option. You either become something like a drug dealer, which a lot of my friends ended up doing, went to jail
Mm.
for quite a long time, a lot of them. Or my dad said to me, you can join the military. And for me, I wanted to be a police officer. So from an early age, it was the police. I joined the military as a police officer to start with, and then I just didn't really find my place. So I did a lot of different jobs and a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole. We probably need to do at least 2 or 3 podcasts on what happened in between. Let's just say that.
Well, I know the military is really near and dear to your heart because now
Mm,
you are the incredible founder of a foundation,
mm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, an international award-winning foundation now, which is crazy to say out loud. I got out of the military partly because I pushed myself so hard over 15 years. I pretty much broke most of what my body can give. I had a hole torn through my ankle, multiple operations on my wrist, back, um, at least 2 different injuries on my back, my right knee cartilage all torn, hips, you name it. I pushed myself to, the top level that I could go. And then with Afghanistan, I did Afghanistan in 2009, 2008, 2009, and it was pretty horrific over that time period. And it's interesting to say because my partner is military and she did Iraq and Afghanistan. So talking
Yeah.
to her over that time period was about her tour and my tour and what the differences were, but also what the similarities were of what we went through with
Yeah.
experiences. And coming back from Afghan, my body was broken, but so was my mind.
Hmm.
So over that time period, no one knew what PTSD was. It wasn't really a
Yeah.
thing that had come around, and not many people understood it. So I became a functional alcoholic, and at one point I was homeless. Even though I was in the military, I was sofa surfing. That's what we call it.
Hmm.
So I was living on people's sofas, and I was just drinking super heavily. I was spending hundreds of pounds every single hour. I was in debt. I was taking out payday loans just so I could maintain this alcoholic side
Hmm.
of me, whilst then trying to function as a normal individual.
Yeah.
And so I was diagnosed with PTSD in, gosh, when was it? 2017, 2016, 17.
Wow.
And then from there, because my PTSD was so drastic because of the 10 years or so since I'd
Hmm.
been an Afghan, I lost my career. And definitely through that, it felt like a loss.
Yeah.
So, that took me on a different path, a different journey.
Very, very.
Mm.
What was it in the military that didn't quite fit or it didn't quite feel like you were a part of it? Because I know that was also a piece of your story. And then you can even feel how you felt even more alone once you left. And even though there is, especially in the culture, it seems like there's such a camaraderie within the military, but there are still people who feel like you do, where there isn't that connection.
Yeah, it was a strange one because I grew up quite popular. I was really good at sports, and in school I was quite popular. I went to college, and college was a totally different experience. I bombed everything in college. It was just the worst thing in the world for 2 years. I got an ungraded in one of mine, and I love art, and I was always told how amazing I was at art, whether that was painting or I love to paint walls. Never really got into the spray painting side, but I would love to do that. And I just absolutely failed at it. So I didn't really fit in at college. There was a lot of kids who had money, they all had cars. At the point in college, I was working, so I was quite old because coming back from Hong Kong, I was put back a year to try and align the systems because in Hong Kong it was very American style
Hmm.
when it came to the education system, and it was a private school. And then I came back into a public school in the UK, and they said to align, they need to put me back a year. So I was always the oldest in the year, and that was just the way it was. And so in college, even though I was, nearly an entire year older than most people, they came from money. So they had cars, they had money, and I didn't. You know, my mum was always just that individual. She's working her butt off, but it was just to pay the bills, pretty much is what she earned. And benefits wasn't a thing back then. So it was quite limited to what we grew up with. And so at one point when I was working, I was going to college full time. I was working at a shop full time around my college, and then I was going to college at 8:30. I was finishing at 3 o'clock. I was going to work in the shop until 10, and then when I turned 18, I managed to get a job at a nightclub. So I was finishing at 10 at the shop, and then I was getting the bus down to the nightclub. I was starting the nightclub at 10:30 and finishing at 4 a.m. and then getting a little bit of sleep. And then I was doing that, you know, so I was doing it Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, but Saturday
Hmm.
obviously being my rest day with no college. And I was doing that for a couple of years.
Wow.
So I never really kind of found a place in when I was a
Yeah.
civilian. So my dad sat me down and said, look, you know, you're at the point in life, what do you want to do? So we went down to the careers office, and I sat there, did my attestation, signed the document. 3 months later, I started. And the first day I
Wow.
turned up, um, it was a very interesting moment when it's like you're having a connection broken. It's the first thing that they do. They shave your head. Hair's gone.
Wow.
That's all the boys. Girls didn't get it back then, and now times have changed where guys don't get it either. But back then it was very straight down the line. If you're a boy, your head's getting shaved. If you're a man, your head's
Hmm.
getting shaved. So they break that connection of who you used to be, and then they spend 3 months training you to leave everyone behind and be okay with just being alone. And the only
Hmm.
people that you have around you is this group of 11 other guys, because we didn't
Hmm.
have mixed intakes at that point. So 11 other guys who became your brothers. And I sadly got injured halfway through. That was the first injury. Something happened to my back, so I had to go through a lot of physio for quite a few months. And then I got put into another troop. It was fantastic, some great guys. Um, but then you finish that phase one training and you move to phase two. And the likelihood is that you're not going to see those friends that you made again, not for a long time. If ever, some of those guys I never came across in a 15-year career. And then you go to phase two. It was 9 weeks, and at the time, because I transferred into something else, because the promotion was super slow as a police officer, so I ended up transferring out and then going to this other course for 9 weeks, and I made loads of friends. And I came top of my course. I was fantastic at it. I got the best posting that you could get. It was Cyprus as the first posting,
Hmm.
and then I never saw any of them again. And then I went to
Wow.
Cyprus. And this is a cycle that you go through. It's like a
Yeah.
lost cycle every single time where you make friends, you get close to people, and then you're gone. And that
Yeah.
connection's tough. So I worked out that in my military career, I must have moved around in 15 years. I must have moved around 12 or 13 times.
Hmm.
So all of those friends that I'd made, that then the connection was severed and they were gone. And you were just very lucky if you ever kind of crossed their paths again. So I
Yeah.
never felt like I fitted in anywhere. So I was a police officer. I was working in HR. I was in the artillery flying UAVs. I was an
Hmm.
instructor. You know, all of these job roles and many others in between. Um, I just never felt like I fitted anywhere.
Yeah.
And then piled on top of that, 10 years of, nearly 10 years of PTSD and not knowing.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, before you know it, and I say I lost my career because that's how it felt at the time.
Hmm.
And I was saying prior to our meeting that I was living in a perpetual emotional state.
Yeah.
There was no thinking, it was feeling. Everything was feeling. And when you feel everything, it can be chaos, absolute
Hmm.
chaos, which is why I always say you've got to split the way that you think and the way that you feel have to be separate, until you get really
That's
good
a
at
good one.
both of them, and then you can start to merge them. But that's with time and experience. But I had no experience with the thinking and the feeling
Hmm.
side, so it was kind of like, oh my god, what's happening here, and
Yeah.
what's it making me feel here, and why do I feel depressed? So it was a roller coaster, and I was literally on this crazy roller coaster ride every single day. So I lost my career, is how I presented it to
Yeah.
myself. That was my self-talk, that speech inside. And then I just drifted. absolutely drifted for quite some time
Is that one of the
until.
things that, or at least in
Mm.
that disconnection, is that one of the pieces that went into you creating Mentality Matters?
So a lot of learning.
A
Um,
lot of learning.
I called it a glow up, and maybe it was a glow up of the mind, not so
Yeah.
much the looks. I don't, looks isn't a thing for me. I think your
Hmm.
looks can change over time, and we all get old, and
That
looks
is true.
fade, beauty fades, but
Yeah.
the mind is forever, and the knowledge can be passed down. Beauty can't be. So I started to really focus on the mind and what I could learn, what I could take away. Every day became a school day. There's a way I presented to myself. And I tell everyone that, every day just take something away from the
Hmm.
day that you've experienced, and you will grow so quickly. So I did, and I became super qualified in every single thing that you can think of in coaching. I'm a master coach in therapy. I've got some of the best qualifications in therapy that you can have. Hypnotherapy, even down to energy therapy, which I thought was a load
Hmm.
of BS, but it's not. It's genuine and it's real. And it's quite healthy to kind of fall into that
Yeah.
side of yourself too. But it wasn't until I was in New York, I moved to New York just on the off chance, a contract came up for my wife. She took it after a lot of convincing. And
Hmm.
as a family, we moved over to New York, and I met this fantastic guy called Eric Gelb. And we became great friends. I was his personal trainer to start with, and he'll laugh if he ever sees this. But I was told, there's a gentleman who's quite awkward and he's hard to work with. And I said, that sounds like my kind of guy. I'll definitely take him as a client. And the guy who was meant to be his personal trainer, totally fluffed up, double booked. And Eric's very rigid. He's kind of like, you booked your time with me. Unless you give me enough time, 48 hours to cancel, you need to be
Hmm.
there. He's very old school.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool. Let's go. Let's go and train. And we trained for a few months. And then we became great friends. And
Oh.
we were sitting in Starbucks, uh, and we were just having a brew, a cup of tea, and he was having his normal like chai or whatever it was that he drinks, some crazy drink from he loves. And I got a text message saying, "Hey, can you give me a call? I've had some bad news." And it was a really close friend of mine from back in the UK, and I'd met her
Mm.
brother a few times, and he committed suicide. Yeah, he killed himself. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, another text message. Can you give me a bell? Got some bad news. And a
Oh
friend
my
of mine had
gosh.
committed suicide. He had overdosed. And I was sitting there and I said to Eric, like, that's two people I know.
Hmm.
And you know, you don't know it at the time, but there's a shift. There's some kind of
Yeah.
shift when this happens. And it's almost like the shift of their sadness is imparted onto everyone that they ever knew when it comes to
Mm.
suicide.
Very much
I
so.
don't think it disappears. I don't think the energy disappears. I think it just becomes something different.
Yeah.
And the closer you are, the more energy that you take in, the more of that
Hmm.
sadness that you take in, and then you carry the burden. There's actually a really interesting article I was reading about that when you feel something, and this is more so generational. But sometimes when you feel something, you don't know why. It's because when you're hurt, when you feel pain, it actually
Mm.
scars you internally down to your genetic code. And that
Hmm.
can be passed down over
Oh yeah.
generations. And there's times when you can sit there and you can feel something that's potentially not you, which is really interesting. But I think it's the same when it comes to suicide and people taking their own lives or people dying in a non-natural way. Is that
Hmm.
energy then is dispersed out amongst those
Yeah.
who they are connected with, and it's that web theory that we talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, and
Talk
and
about
so
energy.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Eric, we need to do something about this. And we just started talking to guys, openly talking about our feelings, talking about our emotions, and talking
Wow.
about, all the experiences that we had. And guys were like, "God, we need something to do something about this. We need
Yeah.
somewhere to go, somewhere that's not a charity in the feel of
Hmm.
it, but you can feel safe in that container space."
Hmm.
So I was talking to a friend called Bhaskar. and we were just having a chit chat, and he said, "Dude, I said mentality matters. It really matters." And he was like, "Dude, that's the name." So
Uh-huh.
that's how it was born. And what we're nearly 2 years down the line. After our first 12 months, we won an international award for innovation for the work we're doing around mental fitness, which
Hmm.
is something that I don't take the credit for creating the phrase, but certainly the mental fitness that's known certainly around for the last 3 or 4 years is something that I've
Yeah,
been working on in the background. Um, and um, and it's just been, we just won our second award, which officially comes out in about a
that's
month's
so
time.
cool.
That's Foundation of the Year. Um,
That's
so
so cool.
for that one, yeah, it's called mental health. I don't like the phrase. There's too much stigma attached to it. We're trying to change. A part of the mission is changing to mental fitness because a lot
Hmm.
more people can grasp onto mental fitness.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, that's how it came about, and through that journey, I met yourself, and
I know.
I
It's
always say I'm
awesome.
very blessed. I'm really blessed. I call you my guardian angel,
Oh,
because the amount of people that you connected me with and the help that you've given me
I'm
has
so
really
glad.
excelled my,
Good.
certainly my learnings and my experience, and helped me with the glow up. So I'm I'm
I
very,
love
very
that. That's
grateful.
awesome. Thank you for that
But
beautiful gift.
yeah, no,
Was
it's
there
hmm.
was there a moment, and it sounds like it might have been the coffee shop, but even coming before that, where you realized I need to start rebuilding. I need to get control over this. Because you did dive
Yeah.
into all this coaching and all this therapy and learning all these tactics. And I didn't know if there was a very specific moment or if it was just a step-by-step reveal of your glow up.
Oh gosh, it was a journey. That's how I did it, and
Yeah.
and I think the journey really started. Everything I do is for my children. Okay, if I
Mhm.
become rich, it's getting put in trust funds. I don't need a Ferrari. I don't need. I've got a really nice house that suits the
It is
family down
beautiful.
to the ground. I've got a nice car that I've wanted for the last 15 years, I'd suggest. And yes, it's not a brand new car, but I love driving it because I'm all about comfort, not
Hmm.
about how I look to the people outside. That is not an issue for me. If there's a lot of people out there who struggle because they're
Hmm.
worried of what other people will think. But the reality is, the only thing that matters in your bit of space that you will occupy for that potentially 100 years is what you think about you. And that in
Very much
itself was
so.
a process to get to.
Yeah.
But
Oh, I feel like it's
yeah,
still a revealing process to
oh,
get to. There's just so many layers
constant.
of our journey that
It,
we
it
learn.
there's no stopping. There's no stopping, and I think that's the thing. You could be 99 and learn something new about yourself. But my eldest
I could
son,
definitely see that.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. My eldest son is autistic, and we knew from quite an early age that he's autistic. And then he was tested a few years ago, and it came back that he's got a chromosome deletion, and he will never see the world through uh, the eyes of someone else who doesn't have this chromosome deletion.
Yeah,
And so, I
absolutely.
mean, he's unique, and I love that. Each of my
Mm,
children are unique. We're all unique in ourselves. But he was really the catalyst of saying, you know what, Rich, you need to sort yourself out. You need to learn what's the phrase, stoicism. That
hmm.
word is so powerful, especially in men. The ability to control your emotions.
Yeah.
That is so empowering to a guy that has lived his life. My dad, even though he meant well, he had a
Hmm.
great mind, great businessman, but there's these unlocks that you get along this journey. And one of the unlocks I had the other week was I struggled financially because I never believed in myself that I could make the money that I will be making,
Hmm.
over the next 12 months or so with the companies that I'm
Hmm.
creating. And it was down to a moment where he had a shop. It was an outdoor shop, so boots, waterproofs, fleeces, that kind of thing. And he was one of the
Hmm.
he was probably actually, I believe he says it. He was the first company in the UK to bring in the American company Berghaus. And he trialed it, and their equipment was really expensive, but it went off the shelves. And
Hmm.
one day we were sitting there on a Saturday because I used to work at his shop on a Saturday, and he said, "Put your hand out." So I put my hand out. A little boy, 15, put his hands out, and he put £30,000 in my hands, and he said, "That's the most amount of money you will ever hold." And unbeknown to me at
That's
that
right.
time, he had
Yeah.
put this little flag in my space at the
Yeah.
time to say, wow, £30,000. And I never realized it, but I always had this £30,000 in my
Mm-hmm.
mind. I want to earn more than £30,000. I want, and it was just this really strange figure that I never understood until a few weeks ago when I was having a conversation about the growth and about
Yeah.
my experiences. And I said, wow, that's why I've never moved past that. I think the
Mm-hmm.
most amount of money I was earning in a job was 36,000 pounds, which is a relatively good wage. And that was when I
Mm-hmm.
was in the military. But it's a journey that you go on, and there's
Isn't it
certain
wild?
moments. It
Yeah.
is, it is. We forget this. I mean, you
Yeah.
see it a lot in your work. People forget how amazing life is. People
Yeah.
forget that it took billions of years for everything to align in the most perfect way just so you could be born.
Yeah.
And when you think of it like that, you think, wow, that's a very special moment that you're here on this earth.
Yeah.
And you're the only person who's ever going to occupy this space and time.
Isn't that wild?
And no one, and we talk about intimacy quite a lot in a lot of the work that I do. And a lot of young people. So I've got a talk in a couple of weeks with a school in Blandford in England.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to a group of young men,
Mm-hmm.
11 to 18. And one of the big things I tell guys is that you need to be you need to be the best person you can be for your partner. Because at some point, when you get to a special moment in that relationship, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to interconnect in space and time.
Yeah.
And that is the one moment that you share this space and time with someone else, which is why intimacy is so important in life, in relationships. And that's why it
Yeah.
needs to be held quite special. So these are all moments that have unlocked for me that I would never ever
Mm.
dreamed of being able to say out loud. But I've been blessed. There's a lot of fantastic people in my life, and you can never do anything or be successful without amazing people around you.
That is
And
very true.
I love having people like yourself
Right
and
back at
like
you.
Eric and like all of these
Yeah.
individuals that I've met that are on the board and people that I've met who I'm working with now. And there's so many names I could reel off, but they're better at what they do than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And as an entrepreneur, as a CEO and a COO, you need to realize pretty early on that you can't do everything. And you aren't going to be the best at everything because there's too many hats. And it's really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I was having a conversation about schools, and this is, and I don't know if it's the same in the US,
Okay.
but education is backwards because as a coach, I
Definitely
teach
see that.
my members, my my clients, I teach them that you need to focus on a goal and you need to work towards that goal. And we all
Yes.
know that if you have 5 goals and you work a little bit on each one,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take a lot more time than if you just worked on one at a time. Okay, we
Yeah.
know that's fact. So why at school do children jump around 5, 10, 15 different lessons each day? Because all they're doing is they're, instead of spending half a day on their maths or
Mm-hmm.
half a day on their sciences, and really building up on their knowledge base over that time
Mm-hmm.
period, giving their brains time to assimilate that information. They jump around, so it's very slowly, and it's over a
Mm-hmm.
15, 16, 18-year experience where they're kind of building up to this knowledge base,
Mm-hmm.
where half of the knowledge base is forgotten because of time, and the brain can only take in so much. But also, you're never going to use it
Oh
because I
gosh.
mean
Yes.
Pythagoras theorem. Who has ever used Pythagoras theorem outside of school?
Honestly.
These so same as when you're an entrepreneur, same when you're a CEO.
Yeah.
So you've got to think back to your schooling, okay? Say, well, that's how I was taught, and that's what's instilled. The qualities are instilled in me. But you've got to
Yeah.
break that.
Definitely.
That's the biggest
Definitely.
thing you've got to do. That is definitely step number one. Step away from your past.
I
That's
love
what you got
that.
to break those ties
Yeah.
because the way that you were taught was good for back then, but it's not right for you now.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this great saying I came across: the person you are today is not the person you were yesterday or the person you'll be
Very true.
tomorrow.
It's so true. So true. Do you find that, especially, I know, and we've talked about so many different things, how do you do, especially when breaking those friendships or relationships that you've had for quite a while, when they're really no longer in alignment with where you're wanting to go with your life? How do you encourage people to do that? Because I feel like you're not the only man that's ever had to do that. And especially because men are often seen or told like, be strong, let them be who they are and just deal with it rather than
Mm.
really learning to process it. How do you navigate that? How do you even encourage your clients to navigate that?
Through conversation. It's an underrated thing that the human race has created,
Yeah.
conversation. That if your initial goals, everything's a cycle. So
Mm-hmm.
relationships are a cycle, friendships, businesses, careers, whatever it is in life, everything's a
That's a good
cycle.
point.
So why not treat it that way across the board? People become very emotionally attached, and it's the attachment that becomes the issue. And if you become over attached, then you're
Mm-hmm.
called needy. If you become under attached, there's other names that you get called, as a man
Right.
especially. But I mean, this is experience, by the way, from
Yeah.
this is my third marriage. So I've been through, and it's the start again. I call it the start again because after each marriage, I've come out with debt, a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems to be as the man you take on the debt. So you have to
Yeah.
then work your way for a couple of years to get back to zero, and then
Mm-hmm.
from zero you can start to build your empire again. But the conversations never happened in my relationships, and I never sat down and said, what's your goals? What do you
Mm-hmm.
want to achieve? It was always my career and what I wanted, and I was very selfish and internal looking. And I started to look outwards, certainly in the relationship I'm in now with my wife, my current wife, and I would say my last wife, FYI, I'll
Mm-hmm.
caveat that. But we have conversations about things now. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what's your goals? What do you want to get out of life? Am I
Yeah.
still in that process? And it's about just having the stoicism is really important because you have that control over where your emotions sit. And whether it's up and down, left and right, you you become a very smart individual when around your emotions.
Yeah. That's
So
really
if
true
you
too.
can detach that away from it and say, okay, well, this is just a conversation. And it's if you were at work, you wouldn't get irate and start crying and screaming and saying,
Mm-hmm.
but I love you. You wouldn't do that at work. So you've got to think to yourself, okay, well, why would I do that at home? If
Mm-hmm.
anything, actually, the home life is way more important than the work life because
Yeah.
there's a million other jobs out there that you can go to, but there's only one partner in your house that you want to be with. And
Yeah.
that's super key. So those conversations are important. And if your partner says to you, look, it just doesn't align anymore, you can either take two paths. And I've done a lot of couples therapy in my time. You can take two paths. You can say, okay, well, thank you for the time that we spent together. Thank you for the
Mm-hmm.
experiences. I appreciate being allowed to spend whether it was a short time period or a long time period with you. And I've learned so much and I'm very grateful. And just leave it in a positive way.
Yeah.
Or you can work on it and say, well, we don't align at the
That's a good
moment.
point too.
We're on two separate paths. How do we interconnect those paths?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the two options that you have to have. But I do believe Spock said it right when he said, you can't be emotional and
Yeah.
logical at the same time. So you have to pick which path you want to go with. And I'm sorry to say, logic beats emotion every single time.
That is a very good point. I love that. My one of my last questions is, what would you say to someone if they were listening right now and they were stuck in a version of their life that they no longer wanted to fit in, kind of like how you were? Where
Mm.
did you start, or where would you suggest that somebody starts?
Start with one step forward. And that one step is going to be a huge leap. It genuinely feels that way. It might only be a micro step, but to you, it's going to feel like the biggest thing you've ever done.
Yeah,
And it's going to be scary. But scary is the best thing you should do. Because if you're not scared, then you're not living. And you've got to get out
that's
there.
interesting.
You've got to get out there. You've got to be scared of life. When you become comfortable, there's this really great saying. I'm a Christian minister. Okay, through my time,
Hmm.
I definitely came across Jesus in the path, and I live my
Mm,
life, right next to me every single moment of my day. is my Bible. And
Mm-hmm.
next to that is
That
this
the other
book that I
book?
was sent. This is the other book
Yeah.
that magically was sent to me, and I
Yeah.
still don't know who sent it. So I'm very grateful if anyone's watching and they did send it to me.
Hmm.
But taking the leap of faith is important.
Yeah.
Definitely taking that, but it's a leap of faith in yourself. That's the key aspect that we need to learn here. You're not taking a leap of faith into nowhere, no man's land, no woman's land, no person's land, whatever way you want to say it. You're taking a leap of faith into yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that you can do. You
Yeah.
believe in yourself. And it doesn't matter where you've come from, because there's always going to be people who will be the naysayers. They'll always tell you that you're going to fail. There's so many out there. If you want to find them, go find them. But there's so many people out there who will tell you that you can do it as well. And that is the most amazing part of it, is that when you jump, when you take that leap of faith, even if it's the tiniest step forward into whatever new position that you want to be in life,
Hmm.
the old life is going to collapse behind you.
That is,
That's time.
and that's a good thing, thankfully, too.
Exactly. So you're
Yeah.
creating every moment. This conversation for the last half an hour or so, 45 minutes, we are creating the new us moving forward through time. And
Yeah.
that's the special thing about time, is that it's how you want it to be. If I smile and I'm happy, I'm moving through time happy. If I'm depressed and I'm always looking backwards, then that's how you're going to spend your time too. So have the leap of faith in yourself and just step forward and get it done.
Mm.
Literally, that
I
is
love.
the best advice I ever got.
Ooh, leap of faith and one step forward. I love that.
Mm.
Thank you so much for your stories, Richie, and for finally making it on the podcast, which I'm so excited about. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
LinkedIn. A lot of people
LinkedIn.
reach out on LinkedIn. Richard
Okay.
Sharratt on LinkedIn.
We'll have all
Go.
that in the show
I've got a
notes.
few companies on the go. So Mentality Matters. .org is a great one to reach me. Yeah, there's so many. Agora
Awesome.
Social Club is
We'll go
another
with
one.
those
So
two.
we'll go with those ones. There's so
We'll
many.
go
I
with
could do
those
this for an
ones, and
hour.
they'll be in the show notes for sure. Thank
Amazing.
you so much for your incredible insights and for your stories and your wisdom, and of course, your time and your knowledge. To
As
our
always.
wonderful listeners, thank you for spending time with us, and we'll see you on the next.